Before we begin today, we'd like to start with a naming ceremony for our sister Desiree. I want to apologize that the day that we had originally scheduled, we became so engrossed here that we ran out of time, but we did not run out of love. So we would like to do this very quickly, and then we will proceed with our program. So can someone bring Desiree a pillow from the office? For those of you who are not familiar with the spiritual significance of the changing of name, let me simply mention to you that in ancient times, when a person was about to embark upon a spiritual path, it was understood to be equivalent to a new birth. And in all of the traditions of the world, you'll hear talk about being born again. This being born again is simply the individual coming into a different. You can
move over that front. Oh, that way.
Bilal will tell you what to do. He tells me what to do. Why should he tell you what to do? Just do whatever. You can just
This right there.
That's fine. That's fine. You can turn toward it. Acha. So, whenever we would take a new name, it was to symbolize a new life, a new dimension, a new being coming in replace of the old being. And very often the name would include in a kind of characteristic that will very often become the theme of that person's life. It will be the istah, the ideal that that person is trying to attain. It'll be some way, shape, form, or fashion connected with that person's swabhava, with their inner nature, with that unique quality that they have received directly from the Creator. And so it's in that spirit then that we execute these naming ceremonies. After all, there's no big deal in a name, other than the fact, if you can use it properly, it can become a device that can help remind you to yourself of your istah and your spiritual goal and what you're trying to become. If your name does not do that, then it is meaningless. You see, it is meaningless. So your own name should be sort of like a mantra, something to remind you of your own spiritual journey. It should have meaning and significance. And over the time that I have had the pleasure of knowing Desiree, which is a beautiful name in itself. It contains the meaning of desires. And no doubt she has lived up to her name over the years and have tried to fulfill all kinds of desires. But I found in her a quality, just a very beautiful quality. And the difficult part in these naming ceremonies is to come up with a name for this quality, because sometimes you see there are qualities that you all have that are just so subtle, so magnificent, it's hard to put a name onto it. And so I struggled, and the closest thing that I could come to Desiree and naming the qualities that I feel in you was the name Sahaja. Sahaja means easy. Very easy, because she's very easy. Isn't she? Very sweet. No trouble. She goes along. When she's here, she makes no noise, no sound. You don't even know she's in the room. She reminds me of this Mahakashyapa that was with the Buddha, who would sit in the back silently. Years went on. You see. But Buddha always knew that Mahakashyapa was there, because it was to Mahakashyapa that Buddha passed on the Gati. So this is your Sahaja to me. Nice and easy. So, if you will close your eyes for a moment and lift your head and look to this name, Sahaj. Feel it, understand it, and remember that that is your goal now. It's to take everything easy, to be real easy, to be easy with other people. There's been time in the old days it was too harsh with people. Held them to test. Right? I want you to lighten up. Right? And be very easy. And let that old Desiree simply dissolve, simply disappear. And let that deeper identity in you, that deeper reality in you, that is so sahaja, so natural, so easy, surface. And that new identity in you will make the whole life easier, because you will be living consciously at a level where your intention is to make life easier, to simplify life, to decomplicate your life, to get rid of all of the baggage that you don't even use anymore. Throw this stuff away. Desiree was a pack rat, hung on to everything. You let Sahaja function differently. And so when you open your eyes like a baby when it comes out of its mother's womb, you will enter a new life, a new world. A world that will be nice, natural, simple, clear, easy, Sahaja. I give to you Sahaja Raya. Sahaja, that doesn't mean you won't be doing any savor. We'll take back the easy part. I try. Now today, of course, we have a very full agenda because we will be talking more about the anatomy and evolution of ego, and how all of this evolution and maturation of ego relates to spiritual progress. We'll try to even talk about some of the practical day-to-day benefits that you can expect to incur as a result of working on the acceleration of your ego. And remember, I have said that the problem with most of us is that we suffer from an ego deficit syndrome. We normally think that our problem is that we have too much ego. Well, you have too much of the lower kind of ego, no doubt. But the whole ideal in spiritual practice, as well as in just normal growth in an individual, that our ego, our sense of identity, has to go on maturing deeply. If you are functioning out of a very shallow ego, then you will live a very shallow life. It follows from that. And so we'll continue our discussion then of the nature and anatomy of ego, and we'll talk about its evolution. Prior to that, however, I think so that we will not run the risk of missing him at all today, we will bring Satra up in the beginning, because I know you all have been waiting for this moment, just as I've been waiting, right? Yes. And last week he was kind enough to accept the savor of talking to us about meditation, the real thing, and to talk about unconditional love. And I'm sure he has incorporated many other topics and themes along with his savor. And remember, this is savor. And it's a great savor because it's an opportunity that he has, as well as all of us will have in the future, of sharing our life experiences with each other. We are a community of seekers. We're all struggling human beings down here, trying to find our way to paradise. You see, trying to somehow or another make our way through this thing called life with minimum damage, minimum suffering. And the only thing that we have to lighten our journey is each other, you see. And so this savor that is done by sharing knowledge and information is a great savor. That's, after all, is the meaning of satsang. Satsang means true association. It is a coming together of individuals who are in pursuit of a common truth. So it's very good that we have brothers and sisters here who are very generous and willing to share their knowledge with us. And I hope that you all will be very willing when called upon to share your knowledge. After all, this may be the only place where we actually want to hear what you have to say. Nobody else cares what you think. All right? So here, at least you will find souls who are thirsty, you see, who will go through an hour of your rattling. If only you will just have one kernel of truth in it. We'll accept that, huh? And so with no further ado, let us turn over the chair or seat, podium, or absent thereof to our brother Setra, and let him feed us. So take out your plates and load up. All right, Setra.
Again, may we have a moment of silence. Washika Ma'at. Where to begin? First of all, let me make this perfectly clear that this Robert Gardner is a fool. This Robert Gardner was born into this world without any knowledge of himself nor the world. This Robert Gardner, he did everything his way. It was the world according to Robert Gardner, never mind anyone else. This Robert Gardner, this man did a lot of stuff in which that he was ashamed of, a lot of stuff in which that he regret. This Robert Gardner got into drugs and alcohol. This Robert Gardner had got so filled up with all the atrocities and all the negative of the world that during his search in this wilderness, he used to stop at a cemetery on 127th and Halsted before going home after drinking all night, trying to communicate with the ancestors, trying to communicate with some spirit, begging and asking to save his life. Then this Robert Gardner met this man, in which that he told him all the things in which that he needed to hear. And in the process of holding out his arms and caressing this Robert Gardner, he gave him this name. This name was Set Ra Heru Ra Afrika. The meaning was the quintessential truth and the divine will of God and man. Now this Set Ra Heru Ra Afrika was blessed with so many things. So I will begin at this stage with Set Ra Heru Ra Afrika. Because again, he too has no knowledge. All his knowledge was given to him. So I was asked to speak about enlightenment and unconditional love. Now, like all things, this thing called enlightenment has its stages also. So I think I should begin with a story. See, this Bilal Hassour, this cameraman, years ago, used to be my hero, still my hero. All right? Again, there's nothing in which that I can say to make you understand that I was given two births. My mother gave me my physical birth, and then this Guru Sahib, this Bhagwan Africa gave me my spiritual birth. And which that I can never repay this man back. I can never repay him back. He gave me this spiritual birth, and here's my nanny here, this Bilal Hassour. I worried this man to death, 4 or 3 o'clock in the morning, with all kind of nonsense. However, again, that was a part of growing up. I'm still an infant. So the things in which that I share with you is not my knowledge. This is truth that has been passed down from time immemorial. I have no knowledge. So let's begin with this enlightenment, or attempt to define enlightenment. I'm going to again begin with a story. This story of Sayyid Samad. This Jewish mystic. This Samad was a very wealthy merchant. He traded in between Africa and India. And he was a very well-known trader and merchant. As a matter of fact, kings requested his presence because this man, he traded and he was just known throughout. And while in India, he saw this very handsome boy, and he fell instantly in love with this boy. Now, I know, thinking from a European westernized mind, you're going to say this man is a homosexual. But yet and still, this man had this earthly love for this young man. And he was so took by this man because he was just a beautiful creation. And Samad thought, he said, well, if God can produce a man or a boy of this beauty, I wonder how God himself look. And that prompted him to go on that spiritual journey, that search. That was his conversion. And during the process of searching for God, he read all the books. He read the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gitas, and the Vedas, and the Quran. And he saw that these books was not satisfying his thirst for this longing of God. Again, he's like you and I. The first thing in which that we do, we think that a book will satisfy our quest and need for God. So we read the Bibles and the Qurans and the Dadas. But the truth of the matter is that there's no truth in books. You will not find God realization in a book. That's your first stage of enlightenment. The truth is not in a book. The book is for inspirations, yes. But you will not find this thing called enlightenment in a book. I don't care what the book is. I don't care how many times you have summarized and read it and quoted it. You will not get this truth in a book. And this Samad came to the realization that these books was not satisfying his thirst for God. So he began to associate with all the philosophers and the holy men, the fakirs and the mullahs. And he found that these people were just as enlightened as he was. Because again, these people did not have the truth. They didn't have what he was searching for. He was searching for this thing called God realization. And he could not hear and feel within these mullahs and priests and rebbes the things in which that he needed. So in his search, he just searched and searched, and he fasted and did all kind of austerities, because again, this man really wanted this God realization. And as always, God is such an understanding spirit that he led this Samad to his Guru Sahib, Bakar. And Bakar initiated him into the mysteries. Now this Samad, Dorothy, this Samad was something else. Because again, Samad understood, again, before even going into the transformation into God realization, that first of all, he had to become a disciple. You see, for the most part, we are like this Samad. You know, we want to jump straight into this God realization without even doing any footwork or any homework. We don't want to become a disciple first. We just want God realization, period. And this discipleship, the root word of disciple is discipline. We don't want to do no disciplining. No. We want to hold on to our meats and our intoxicants and our sexual promiscuous, and we want to do all these things, but yet and still we want God realization. And again, Samad, and doing his discipleship, realized that he had to drop all this nonsense, all this foolishness. It reminds me of another story of Bulleh Shah. Bulleh Shah was this highly spiritual and developed person, in which that again he had met his Guru Sahib, Hasarath Iniak Khan, in which that again Bulleh Shah, since he came from a higher caste system or caste system, he thought that his Guru Sahib again was not of his understanding or liking. Again, this Bulleh Shah, he loved Hasarath Iniak Khan, but yet and still there was one little aspect of him in which that he didn't denounce. This Hasarath Iniak Khan had initiated him into the mystery system. However, he did not initiate him from the inner system. So Bulleh had developed this higher state of consciousness. He can do these austerities. So Bulleh Shah cousin, Bulleh Shah was of a higher caste system. It's the Saeed caste. Bilal Hassoun. Don't want to give me no, but he was of a higher caste system, because again, this Bulleh Shah, his great grandfather, he was kid to the Prophet Muhammad. And again, this Hasarath Iniak Khan was of a lower caste system, because again, he was a gardener. He was of the Adrenian caste system. So Bulleh Shah cousin was to be wedded, and he invited Hasarath Iniak Khan. However, Hasarath Iniak Khan, he sent one of his disciples because he couldn't attend this wedding. And the story goes, whereas that when this disciple of the great Hasarath Iniak Khan attended the wedding, Bulleh Shah, along with his family, shunned him. They didn't make him feel welcome, not at all. And at that, he went back and he told Hasarath Iniak Khan about it. And Hasarath Iniak Khan, he just said, this Bulleh Shah, I can't tolerate this. I will not accept him. And so he did not permit Bulleh Shah to come within his darshan, his sight. And Bulleh Shah, he just became deranged because, again, he had developed this bhakti, this true love for Hasrat India Khan. He loved him. But yet and still, because of this ego, because, again, he was caught in between us, the idea of satisfying his family in worldly goods. Because, again, when we decide to get this God realization, we have to detach ourselves. Again, that is one of the stages in this transformation, is to drop this attachment along with the greed, lust, the anger, and the ego, the 5 perverted states of the mind. And this Buddha Shah had not detached himself from his family. So again, Hazrat knew this. He knew this. And as a result, again, he didn't permit Buddha Shah to come around him. And Buddha Shah became very distraught. He wandered throughout the streets. He became a madman because, after all, he was of a higher caste, and people looked up to this Buddha Shah because, again, he was a learned mind. He was a scholar, as a matter of fact. And without his Guru Sahib, he just became crazy. And he had found out through the townspeople that during this religious fest that his Guru Sahib, Hazrat India Khan, will be attending this festival. So this Buddha Shah, this man was so in love with Hazrat India Khan, his Guru Sahib, that he performed a tapa. He grew breast like a woman, and he grew hair as a woman. And at the fest, these dancers danced to the delights of all the fakirs and holy men. And Buddha, he danced for Hazrat India Khan. And he danced and he danced and he danced. And Hazrat India Khan recognized Buddha. And he said, Buddha, Buddha. And Buddha, he instantly fell to his knees. And he said that, oh, Guru Sahib, please forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing. And he begged this forgiveness. And this Hazrat India Khan just embraced him and said, my son, come home. And that's when he initiated him into the inner path of God realization. And again, this Samad, he had been initiated the same way through this Bakar. And what happened with this Samad, again, after receiving an initiation, it was said that his Guru Sahib had ordered him to not wear any clothes. So this Samad, he went throughout the town butt naked, teaching high mysticism. People came to him from miles and miles around. They loved this man. But like all of the great mystics that come here on earth, these holy men, the Muslims and the Hindus, didn't like this Samad. Because after all, this Samad was robbing them of their business. You see, when these highly developed souls, when people develop, when these spiritual men obtain this enlightenment and become one with God, the first thing in which that the world or society does is reject them, because again, they will take away all the business of the churches. Again, the churches survive off of people money and people fears. But these mystics come along and they teach the truth. And there's no charge. There's no charge for love. And this Samad, again, he made all the mullahs and the fakirs and the priests very angry at him, because again, they were trying to entrap him. You know, they brought him in front of the king, and they charged him with roaming the streets naked. But again, there was no charge to really imposed on him. And again, this Samad, he became one with God, and he just outmaneuvered him. But doing Samad God realization, when he made that union with God, he declared throughout the streets of Delhi, Ana ul Haq, Ana ul Haq, I am God, I am God. And the king and all the mullahs, the Muslims and Hindus, they went and reported him to the king. And they said, no, 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 no. Samad, you must recant this Ana ul Haq. You are not God. And Samad, he refused to recant. So therefore the king ordered him to be beheaded. And since the Samad had attained such a large following, they had to act real quickly, or else there would have been a riot, because this Samad was a loved man. And so the very next day, the king ordered all the military to block all the entrance of the streets and the highway, because again, this Samad was loved. And even as they took him to the place of their execution, which was next to the Masjid, Jamal Masjid, the temple, the executioner came, and Samad looked at him, and Samad said, oh, you come as my execution again, huh, God? Because remember, when one become one with God, everyone and everything is God. So even the man that came to execute him, he couldn't be fooled. No, this is God. God, you can't, this is the way in which that you want me to go out. And they beheaded him. They cut off his head. And the story goes, whereas that this Samad picked up his head and he ran up and down the temple stairs in the masjid, yelling and screaming, Ana ul Haq, Ana ul Haq, Ana ul Haq, I am God, I am God. Until the astral form of his Guru Sahib, Bakar, came and said, Samad, you have demonstrated to the people that you are one with God. Perform the laws of nature. And at that, he dropped his body. Enlightenment. The supreme stage of enlightenment is to become one with God. To scream out, Ana ul Haq, or Hamam Babasi, or Anukasar, or I am the Father of one, that melting. That is the supreme enlightenment. But you see, brothers and sisters, before we even can get to that stage of enlightenment, every day we go through our little infant stage of enlightenment. Before we can make the declaration of being one with God, first of all, we have to come out of this denial that we know everything and that we somehow we can enlighten ourselves. There has not been in time anyone that came here who did not need a teacher, a guru, to obtain the stage of enlightenment. From time immemorial, one needs a teacher, guru. Ptah Tim have stated that no man is born with divine wisdom. So therefore, there's a need for a teacher. But yet and still, when a teacher does come along, we are so asleep that we don't even recognize the teacher. Because we're still waiting on Jesus. We still somehow think that doing our belief system with this religious system, that somehow Jesus is going to come and save us, or the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, he's going to come rescue us, or the Buddha. You must understand that even in the stage of accepting this enlightenment, that you will recognize and realize that these people are dead. The physical body is no longer here. But the consciousness in which that they have attained will always be here. If Jesus came and kissed you on the cheek, you would know who he was. Because the first thing in which that he would do was take your silly little Bible and shred it up and throw it away. Just as he did back then. But the Bible was the Torah. You see? He didn't believe in no book. He said, you come and follow me. What is this nonsense? Throw away that book. And the same with Buddha. He does not know anything about a Dambuddhata. No. When these great teachers come, there's a scientific methodology in which that they all employ. And that is for you to get out of your mind. You understand? The process of enlightenment is to take you out of your mind. Religion, books are mind process. It's a mind masturbation. True enlightenment will take you out of your mind. And how will it take you out of your mind? There's a scientific methodology employed with all of this. No mystic, no saint, no fakir, no Mod Saber will ever teach from a book. A book is little knowledge, as the uncommon people say. That's little knowledge. Real knowledge have to be taught. And taught by one who have obtained this enlightenment. You must understand this. And it's the same truth that has been taught from time immemorial. It has not deviated at all. No matter what system you go into. You can go into the Assyrian system of our ancient African ancestors. It's the same system as the Kabbalah. It's the same system in terms of teaching this oneness and union with God. And again, it's a scientific methodology employed. Number one, you must drop this religiosity. Because your religion has trapped you. It keeps you held and bound and stagnated into a belief system that's really is not even based on any reality. If you are a true Christian, and please make a note of, I am not here to criticize any religion. Because your belief system, again, God bless you, you believe in the truth, and again, you're trying to acquire the same thing in which that we all are. But if you're going to be a Christian, be a Christian. Ask the question, where did they get it from? And where did they get it from? And you will discover that they got it all the way from your ancestors back home in Africa. That whole concept was stolen and copied. Period. But the thing is that that's not even important. Because, again, you must drop this religious teaching to begin to understand that even though you do believe in whatever religion that you believe in, is it bringing you self-realization? Is it producing bliss for you? Are you at a stage of blissfulness every day of your life? Or do you go through these mood swings? Happy one day, sad the next day. You know, got love and peace in your heart one moment. Then you can kick someone's ass in the next moment. Is it really doing something for you? You see, you got to ask yourself that question. And if it's not, then you're ready for some truth. You're ready for some truth. And in your search, of seeking this truth, God will send you someone. And we said he will show you a method. Now this method will not be easy because again, these great teachers will have you to drop your meat. Because after all, if God is in every form of living creature, the 8,400,000 species, and any time in which that's, an animal will have the consciousness to run away from you, you shouldn't eat it. Not at all. Secondly, these teachers will tell you to start to begin to live in a state of truthfulness. To tell the truth. And not to anyone else, but to yourself. Live in a state of truth. You see, we have all these holidays to remind us to live in a state of truth. We've got New Year's Eve in which that we lie and talk about what we're going to drop for that year. We got, what is that, ash, when people put crosses on their head, Lent Day, and talking about what they're going to drop. You know, if you learn how to practice some set Yah to yourself, to live in a state of truthfulness, it's a hard thing to do. But yet and still, they will tell you to try to live in a state of set Yah. They will tell you to do your sadhana and your avyasa. They will tell you that the only way to get into this God realization is that you must meditate. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. There's no easy way. You can't con your way out of this one. There's no debating. There's no debating about my book is right, my religion is right, yours is wrong. No. Drop, all that is dropped. You're going to come into a state of God realization within yourself, and your meditation will let you see how weak and puny that we all are. Because before this God realization, before this union, this mind has to be still. You see, Rick, you asked a question the other week about what's the difference between, what was the question again, Rick? Brainstorming and meditation. That is so easy. Meditation is the process of stilling the mind. There's no brainstorming. What is brainstorming? It's your mind chattering, telling you 1,000 different crazy things while you sit there trying to keep it still. That is one of the reasons in what's that you can't concentrate. Because here it is, you try to read a book and then you read something, and then all of a sudden you realize you're hungry, you get up, you eat, and then you go back to the book, and then you hear something on TV, and then you say, oh, let me watch TV, and then while watching TV, you out on the beach because they out in the water, and then you daydream, and all of a sudden you say, I got to go back to this book, you read the book, and then you read a sentence in which that you say, oh, this is true because it reminds me of someone else, and then you read the book, and then all of a sudden you sleep, and oh, it's time to go to bed. That's the way our minds are. Because again, it has not been trained. Meditation will train the mind to be still. Be still and let you know that I am God. Be still. We can't still our mind. As a matter of fact, we think that we can control our mind. No, your mind controls you. You're a victim of your own mind. And with the process of meditation, it will let you see that. There's a methodology, Lil Rick, in which that the ancient ancestors call it min eb im ankh im ma'at. What Buddha called vipassana. It's a process in which that you sit and you watch your mind. And you will realize that you're not even in that thing. See, all the time we think that we're in charge of our mind and that that the mind is us. That mind don't even belong to you. And you will realize that in the meditative stage called min eb im ankh im ma'at, or vipassana. You will realize that you don't even know what this mind is. It doesn't even belong to you. Because if you're on a diet and that mind tell you, get your butt up and get some ice cream, or you trying to drop your drugs and alcohol, and that mind tell you that, hey, look, you don't work hard enough and everybody drink. You know, you go out and you get a drink, won't nobody have to know. You're gone. Or you set your clock at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to do meditation and your mind says, oh, you work too hard. You know, it's too early in the morning. After all, it's 5 after 3 and you're supposed to be up at 3. You lay down. Yes. Or the mind will tell you, well, you know, you're such a loving and honorable spiritual person. You're so forgiving and so kind. And then as soon as someone step on your foot, God damn it, all that stuff drops. Because again, the gurus, the great teachers, come here to let you see that you are a victim of your own mind. No white man is doing this to you. Your mother, your father, whoever, your husband, your girlfriend, whoever you blaming, they got you in all this state of misery. They're not doing it to you. It's your own mind. You will discover that your mind is your greatest enemy, your worst enemy. You will discover this through the process of meditation. When you are under the tutelage of a guru, someone who has himself or herself is an enlightened being. You see? Because see, you will discover later on that there's a physical initiation. The initiation in which that most of the Radasi has gone through physically. But there's an inner initiation also that will tell you that you have this set guru. You need a teacher. There has never been anything in your life in which that you did on your own. From wiping your butt to feeding yourself, all that stuff had to be taught. So, how do you think you're going to gain God realization or enlightenment without a teacher? You will need a teacher. Enlightenment is the stage in which that it will let you know that I don't know anything. I've tried it my way, and I have failed. That's the first stage of enlightenment. You will know. And then you're opening up yourself to be filled with some knowledge of truth. As it is written, you have to be born again. You have to be born again. You have to go through this rebirth process. Because you didn't get it right. We didn't get it right the first time. We got to start all over again. And that's going to take courage to drop all this stuff in which that your ego telling you that it's right. Because it has messed up your life. So I like to talk about the little enlightenment. Never mind this grand thing about union with God. The little enlightenment. The realization that you're human and you're imperfect and you have your weaknesses and shortcomings. And that you will make mistakes. That's enlightenment. To know that you're not perfect and you need some help. We all need help. So, with that, are there any questions? Because I would like to end it with the story before. Talk too much about it. So what can I tell you, brother? Are there any questions? Yes, brother.
It was interesting. I was listening at you, and early this morning I got on here a chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. And I was talking about everything meaningless and abandonment. Solomon was talking about, throughout his lifetime, and all the wisdom he acquired and stuff, he came to the realization that it was meaningless. And we got, and I was reading that, and I don't know what made me go to that chapter, but I think my mother was telling me to go there and read that. And he was talking about all that, about the reading of the book, and I'm able to read, and I feel my thirst seeking me through that, but then I get up and I say, it's not like that. It's going to all be bad, and stuff like that. It's all going to be worth it. And he was talking about that oneness with God, and the whole purpose is to be a reverend God and stuff. The old thing, he's speaking to the younger, was to enjoy your life from here and now, as you are young and stuff, into your youth and stuff. That's what we are in on a good note.
See, brother, the truth of the matter is that these books can inspire you. But you want that same thing in which that you read in the book. You want that experience, don't you? You see? And when you are a seeker, in which that you're no longer satisfied with the information and the things in which that you read in the book, you really want the experience, that's when you're ready. Come and get the experience. You are the book. You were here long before there was a book written. You see? You were here. You were here way before there was a Jesus and a Buddha. You were here way before the Prophet Muhammad. You were here. All that stuff is within you. Any more questions? Please.
Yes, Sarah. I would like to know, how long did it take you to really get deep into meditation? Or to be able to meditate for 3 hours or 2.5 hours?
Oh, I'm still there. I'm still in the entry. It's no easy task because, again, you will discover that you will have your good mornings. You might have them for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then all of a sudden, you drop. Because, again, I'm on the same spiritual path as you, sister. But it does take a while. It really takes a while. It took me the longest just to sit for 30 minutes. Someone was talking about sitting for 2 hours, an hour and a half. Now, it took me the longest just to 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So you keep practice, you'll get there. It's a slow process. After all, your mind is tough. Got a tough mind. Does not want to free you. Is there any more questions? Then I would like to end it with the story. You taught me this, Bilal. So what can I tell you? This story is about this guru in which that, again, this guru knew that his time was up and that he needed a successor for his Gadi. And he needed someone to replace him. And so he called all his disciples. And he told his disciple, well, you know, my time on this earth is shortening, and I'll be popping off at any time. And I need someone to replace me. And he asked his disciple, is there any one of you that think that you can do the task? And immediately 5 hands went up. And he said, well, you stand up. And they stood up. And he said, now you 5, you get out of here. Because he knew, that they were there just to learn information. And they could read and relate and report everything in which that they have learned, but yet and still there was no enlightenment at all. And he began to realize, well, I better be very meticulous with this thing. I need to really do a search. So he went one by one to choose his successor. And out of the thousands of disciples in which that he interviewed, there was 4 in which that he felt that was capable of replacing. And he met with the 4. And he called the first one up and said, my son, what has been the heart of my teachings? And the disciple said, well, Guru Sahib, the heart of your teaching has been meditation. And he said, oh, that's so close. But I'm afraid it's not close enough. You have to see. And he called the second disciple up and he said, my son, what has been the heart of my teachings? And he looked at him and he said, Guru Sahib, the heart of your teaching has been enlightenment. And the Guru looked at him and said, oh, my son, you have pierced me. Oh boy, but I'm sorry. That's not exactly right. That's close, but not exactly right. And he called up the third disciple and he said, my son, what has been the heart of my teaching? And he looked at his Guru Sahib and said, Guru Sahib, the heart of your teaching has been love. And this almost made this Guru faint. He said, my son, you have pierced me. You don't know. You really have pierced my heart. But I'm sorry. You came too close, so close. But I'm sorry. And he called this last disciple up. And he says, son, what has been the heart of my teaching? And the disciple just stood there and looked at him. And then tremendous tears flowed down his cheek. And the Guru saw this and tremendous tears flowed down his cheek. And he embraced him and said, you have caught it. Rashikaman.
Right chicken.
Thank you, Sakura. I know that you all are appreciative, you're full. Sakura fills you up. So there's almost nothing to say now. But we'll try our best. I want to remind you that next satsang will be given by Sadaji. Sadaji, where are you there? Acha. So we'll give him his test. And remember, show no mercy for these people foolish enough to come and do so. What would you all like him to talk to you about? Give him his assignment. Yes? Grace? Acha. Sadadaji, you will prepare a discourse on grace. Because we have to remember that spiritual progress is made up of 2 things, isn't it? Our personal efforts in the grace of God, in the Guru. And remember, just out of your own effort, what can you do? I am sure Satra has pointed out to you the state of your mind, the state of your condition. Now, what meditation can you do? Your mind is so damaged, so full of impurity. And by impurity, I mean just cluttered with thoughts of all kinds, all nature. So left to our own recognizance, left to our own tiny efforts, what can we do? Jesus says it so beautifully. He says, how can you turn one hand up? You can do nothing. And so you're right, Tony. Without the grace of the Lord, none of us can do anything. So Siddharthaji will talk to us then about the dynamics of grace and how it relates to effort. How grace is the basis of our effort. How when the Lord wished to show his grace, he do so by creating us a desire to put forth effort. The very fact that you want to work on yourself is a result of the Lord's grace. You see? So you will clear up for us, Adaji, our misconceptions about grace as being something that will descend from the sky, etc., 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 and show us the way to invoke this all necessary grace of God. Acha? Would that be good? Would you all like for him to do more work? Cause get more work out of this guy, huh? You see? Get more out of him. Anything else that you want to discuss? Yes, sister, you want to add to his assignment?
Yes, faith.
Faith. Acha. So you will talk about grace and you'll talk about faith. Shraddha, faith. Because we have to have faith, don't we? The ancient African mystic talked about the necessity of having the three types of faith. Faith in oneself, that one can follow the path, because so many of us feel we can't follow. That only Buddha, only Mahavir, Kabir, a Dadu, or Muhammad, only these kind of people have that kind of faith that they can follow the teachings. We usually don't have faith in ourselves. We don't understand that you too are a Buddha. You see. And the masters talk about faith in the teachings, because one must have faith in the teachings. If you think that the teachings that these masters have given you are bankrupt, if you think that the teachings are just something that they sat around and made up, if you have no faith in the teaching, then you will not try to mold your life according to the teachings. And if you don't mold your life according to the teachings, then how will you make any progress? You see? So we have to first have faith in the teachings. We have to have faith and confidence in the teachings, that they are accurate, that Jesus is not lying to us, that Jesus is not playing a game with us, that Muhammad is not misleading us, that Moses has given us the law, that Torah is correct, and that these teachings contain the quintessence, the essence of all of humanity's knowledge. We have to have faith in these teachings. We have to have faith that these men, these great women know more than you. Because what do you know? You don't know anything. We don't know anything about the science and art of spiritual progress. And therefore we have to submit, you see, our own opinions. We have to submit our own notions of how this thing should go. And this is very difficult when our egos are so immature. You see. So that is the second kind of faith that Sadaji will discuss with us. And then the third kind of faith, the faith in the teachers. Because if there's no faith in the teachers, then you cannot acquiesce to the teachers' guidance. There will always be something in you that will resist. You see? So faith in oneself, faith in the Dhamma, faith in the teachings, and faith in the teacher, faith in the Guru. These are the three faiths. So Siddhartha, you will talk about all these things. And during the week I may call you and add a few more, because you have escaped us a long time. You owe me 12 years of savor. And I want every pound. Acha, so now let us begin our continuation of our discussion from last week where we were beginning to look at those states of that exist beyond the seventh egocentric level, where our ego by this point has fully begun to mature. And as I talked to you last week, I was telling you that once we have gotten a mature degree of ego, that now we're in a position to really seriously begin to travel the spiritual path. I was telling you that spiritual progress, spiritual practice requires a certain degree of maturity. In ancient times, you see, the masters would not normally initiate people that was too immature. It was understood that a certain amount of maturity had to be in place. And how did you measure that person's maturity? You will look at their morality. Normally people that don't have real solid morals are people who are very immature in terms of their ego development. You understand? And so the masters, the mystics, the sages, the seers, would make it a prerequisite prior to initiation that we had reached a certain level of maturity. And sometimes, if the person has undergone a normal trajectory of development, then very often the moral faculty will begin to come into play and begin to take root in us somewhere near about the age of 27, if you are unfolding in a natural pace. And so very often the masters then therefore would withhold initiation until a person was in that part of their life. If you were still in the age of being a student and things of that nature, they normally would not initiate you see. So a certain amount of ego maturation is prerequisite just to travel the path. You can see how, therefore, a person whose ego has evolved to a point where it has become egocentric, where it can now identify with all of nature, how that person could easily follow the vegetarian diet, because he understands, I'm not going to eat other sentient beings just to satisfy my palate. That somehow this is immoral. Why should a cow lose his life simply in order for me to have some French fries and hamburger tonight? This seems such a vile action. So a person who is mature can sacrifice the pleasures of their palates for the life of another sentient being. The egocentric person has a certain capacity to experience the oneness with nature, so they're less likely to pollute and destroy the earth. You know, they're much more respectful of nature. And after all, we exist in this web of nature. If we destroy all these trees and all this water, you destroy yourself. Literally. Because we are an ecosystem. We're interdependent. Your existence is dependent upon the trees' existence. What will exchange the carbon dioxide that makes up the air that we breathe, except for these plants? So a person who is matured to a level where they can embrace nature, it's easier, you see, for them to mold their lives according to the teachings, because the teachings require ahimsa. The teachings require this kind of compassion, you see. And if you're still locked down in one of the lower stages of your ego development, where you are still looking upon the world as something that is just there for you to exploit, to reduce to your own pleasure and for purposes of your own entertainment, then it's going to be very hard, you see. So this egocentric level of the ego is the stepping off point for the formal practice of spiritual growth. And there are many intermediary stages between the egocentric stage, the mature ego, and the so-called spiritual stages. So I'd like to talk to you now about the next level where our identity gets shifted to. And for lack of a better word, I'll call it, you become soul-centric. sometimes we have to invent our own language. I hope you don't mind. Don't walk around telling people you're soul-centric because they're going to think you're crazy. All right? Just keep it among us. I reminded that the Sufis, the peers, the sheikhs, when they would initiate a new murshid, you see, into their sangats, the Sufi master, the peer, would oftentimes sit with that new initiate and instruct them on how they need to function now that they have drank this wine. You see? Because they referred to the knowledge as wine. It was a code word because the Sufis had to practice their mysticism within the context of Orthodox Islam, you see, which is a very different phenomenon from Sufism. And they had to therefore create code words, code languages for the knowledge that they were dispensing. And so they called this experience of enlightenment wine, okay? And so they told the new initiates that now listen, when you leave the wine shop, because they called the place where they had their meeting the wine shop, it is a place where you come and you drink wine and you get high in here. And they said, now you go straight home, you see, right away when you leave this place. Because if you linger out in the street, some of these bad little boys and they causing thieves will see you as you are staggering away from here and they'll rob you, right? So you have to learn, you see, the ways of handling this wine. In any event, so I don't want you to drink outside of the wine shop. And now when you leave here, leave our languages here, right? So that the man in the straitjacket don't catch you and lock you up, okay? Acha. Now, so as I was saying that as we begin to travel from this egocentric stage in the maturation of our ego, and for those of you who have not been with us, please take advantage of those people in here and try to have them catch you up. It is just too difficult, you see, to bring you up to speed because it will require us to backtrack and that'll take another 4 workshops. But in any case, there are so many intermediary stages along the way before the ego now moves to its next level. Now let me point some things out to you that you might recall. I had said before that as the ego evolves, as the sense of our identity evolves, because that's what ego maturation is, isn't it? It is an evolution in your sense of who you are. It is an evolution in your identity. You see. And as you evolve from one stage to the next higher stage, you automatically incorporate and integrate and enfold into the higher stage the material that was below that. You see? So the same process is going on here. You see, as you move from the egocentric level up to the soul-centric level, you are enfolding, you are integrating all of those other components that had made up your identity into a new identity. The interesting thing is that when your ego becomes soul-centric, when your basis of identification becomes that with your soul. Now this is very interesting because most of us do not identify with the soul. Now that's strange. You say you have a soul, you say I am a soul, but we do not find any of that in the description of who you are. I'd like for you to take a sheet of paper, please. And on this sheet of paper, write down a description of who you are. If someone was to stop you and said, Dorothy, tell me, who are you? What would you say? How would you begin to describe yourself? Huh? You can go there. Dear among friends, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but become all of us, all right, for a moment. What would be some of the typical ways that we all go about describing ourselves?
Female who happen to be black.
Okay, so we would first define maybe our race, right? When we define our race as the chief component of our identity, we're really at the ethnocentric level, right? Because we call it the socio-ethnocentric level. Our identification is with our group that we belong to, right? Our racial thing. So we say, well, I'm black, right? I'm a black person. What else would you normally say? I'm black, as you go on describing yourself.
Well, they can see I'm a woman, but I guess.
All right, so you're black. Well, sometimes you see, sister, we don't know anymore. You know, we're in a very different time here, huh? So sometimes they have to identify their gender for us, right? We get confused. Could be like Dennis Rodman. You see a person that don't watch the NBA, they don't know what the hell this brother is. So we'll give our gender, right? We're male or female. We'll add that to our list of description of ourselves. Is that right? And when we add our gender, right, we're back to where? Right. We added in those physio, right? Those physiocentric qualities that we have enfolded into our overall identity. You see my point? And you can see where we picked up this part of our identity that I am a female, right? It was at a lower stage in our ego development, and we just rolled that into a higher one, right? And what would be some of the other things that we would include in our description of ourselves?
Whether you were a parent or.
Yeah, we'll put in the roles, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's coming back up here, right? Because it's when we are beginning to form our socio-centric ego that we begin to take on roles, don't we? I am somebody, father or mother. You begin to define yourself in terms of your roles, right? And that roles can be expansive, can't they? Yes, Rick?
Let's say age, senior citizen, middle age, teenager.
Yeah, sometimes we would segregate ourselves based on the age, right? And again, that is also related to the physiocentric person, isn't it? Because again, our age is based on our bodies, I think, right? So this is a person who has incorporated, again, a lot of elements that belongs on that physiocentric level of ego development. You see my point? They think of themselves in terms of the body or some aspect related to the body. Is that right? What will be some of the other things we'll add to our list?
Job titles.
Yeah, job titles. Again, all of that is in this area. It's sociocentric, right? We still haven't gone beyond that. What else would you add? Is anybody beyond the socio-ethnocentric level of ego development? I'm looking for, yes,
The type
brother.
of person that you are on the
I'm a
inside.
good person, nice person, right?
But that's ego mythology.
It probably is, but still.
I remember in my workshop.
That's right, but still we got to put it in there, right? Because that's what they believe, right? They'll give us their ego mythologies, right? They give us the myth about themselves, right? The kind of person they are, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that might even be including a lot of elements that belong to the emotional-centric level of development, right? And the ratiocentric, right? Where you incorporate all your opinions, your beliefs, your philosophies, your worldviews, your religion. You know, all of those are mind products, right? They're rational byproducts, aren't they? Right? Or the psycho. There's psychocentric material. You can see all of that incorporated, as the brother pointed out, in this description of the kind of person I am. And we see that very often, don't you? You see, after we filled in all of the blanks, then we start coming down to, and you know, not only am I black, and I'm a female, and I'm a mother, you know, and I'm 49 years old, I'm a great person, right? You start filling in all of that stuff in your description of yourself. What are some of the other things that you include in your description of yourself?
I hear a lot of people say, a child of God.
Oh, okay. Where would that fall on the scale, huh?
I'm one.
Where would that fall on the scale? Well, probably that could be some more of this stuff, can it? Because can you have a higher kind of status when you say I'm a good person, I'm a kind person, I'm a loving person, I'm an honest person, but when you say I'm a divine person, wow, that's some high mythology, isn't it? That's some high, you're into some high mythology now. Because when we look in your life, we ain't gonna find nothing divine about you, are we? Is that right? So That's how come we know that essentially that's a lot of mythology, right? I'm a Christian, right? I'm a Muslim. I'm an Israelite, right? I'm a Buddhist, right? And so we look for the behavior of a Christian in your life. And voila, we find none of it. We look for the behavior of a true Muslim in your life, and we don't find none of that. Wherever we look for this behavior of a child of God, we come up short. It's a whole other ballgame. So it's probably somewhere in this ego mythology. High stuff, good stuff, sounds good, right? You'll get a lot of action with that one, right? But invariably, when we penetrate it, right, it is just some more of that low development of the ego, right? So what we find, and I want you to do this as an exercise. I want you to seriously sit down and describe yourself to yourself and see the things that you are made up of, and try to see where you, after you have exhausted yourself, try to see that, my God, I didn't make it past this level. You almost begin to get a portrait, if you will, a self-portrait of yourself in terms of where your level of identity is at. And remember, your level of identity will dictate so much about you. The level of your identity shapes and determines how you interact with the world. If your level of identity is still fairly undeveloped, if you are caught in a biocentric level, where your identification is just with your bodily sensation, with your senses, invariably you're going to have a lot of suffering in your life. Remember, we pointed out last time that the lower your level of ego development is, the more contracted your sense of identity is, the more out of touch it is with reality. And remember, whenever you are out of touch with reality, you will suffer. Please make a note. Suffering is nothing but your failure to be in ma'at with reality. Your suffering is your failure to exist in a state of ma'at with reality. You are not in harmony with that which is real. And whenever you are not in harmony with that which is real, you will suffer, because reality will win out every time. If your identity is still centered in your childishness, where your expectation is that the whole world should feel the way you feel, and whenever you encounter anyone in the world who is not feeling the way you are feeling, or not thinking the way you are thinking, not believing the way you believe it, then you are bound to experience some conflict and some suffering. So you can almost measure where you are. If every day you getting up and you so depressed and you full of so much misery, then that should be a sign to you that you got to do a lot of work on yourself. You stuck somewhere. You stuck in some deep unreality. And it's going to cause you much suffering, much pain. You see, you got to grow up. You got to be born again. What is this rebirth? We go through many rebirths. It's another misnomer. We think we go through one rebirth. In religion, we're talking about being born again. You have to be born again numerous times, because every time you move up the ladder and the evolution of your ego, that's a rebirth. You see, that's a rebirth. As you move from the biocentric to the physiocentric, that's a rebirth. As you move from the physiocentric to the emotional-centric, that's another rebirth. It is this constant process of being born again. Born again. St. Paul says, I die daily, which means that he must be born daily. You see, it's a constant dying and birthing process that is going on. You see. So, as you begin to put together this self-description, the point I wanted you to note that at no time have you mentioned your soul. Yes, you have told me that, well, Bhagwan, my identity is made up of the components of my body, right? and all of the things associated with that is made up of this body and its relationship to other people, this body and its function in the world of society, community. But what is your soul? I can understand you can say, well, I got a body. Okay, that's demonstrated in your list, but now you wrote out your list for me and you tell me you got a soul. I see no evidence. Where's the evidence? Where's the reflection of your soul and your identity? Have you ever thought about it? But you say over and over again you have a soul. Okay, all right. But tell me, what part of your identity is a reflection of your soul? What have you incorporated in your identity that is rooted in your identification with your soul? The truth of the matter is that most of us are not in touch with our souls at all. Yes, it's there, but it is not a part of our identity at all. When one is able to mature to the next level, our locus of identity shifts from all of these lower things to our soul. You become soul-centered. Your identity is referenced to your soul. What does that look like? Oh, Bilal, spare the audience. I want you to see your faces if you ever play this tape back. I want you to know who you are, and so that you can see what I see here. Huh? All these souls here saying, where is my soul? I've lost my soul. You're right. You have lost your soul, literally. You have lost awareness of your soul. You have no awareness of your soul. Yes, you're aware of your body. Yes. You're aware of the biological processes going on inside the body. Yes. You're aware of all of your psychomaterial. Yes. You're aware of your likes and dislikes and all your emotional material. Yes. You're aware of all of your intellectual and mental material, your mind and its opinion, its beliefs, its values, its mores, its taboos, its fears. Yes. But you've lost all awareness of your soul. And that is the objective of spiritual practice, is to recapture the awareness of your soul and to shift the center of your identity to that level. Okay? Now, let us investigate that. This whole phenomenon of becoming soul-centered. Let me start by pointing out a few things to you that you might not have contemplated. We must start with this thing here called awareness. Awareness. We all have awareness. Now, when you have awareness, you have objects of awareness, don't you? Right? You are aware of something, aren't you? Right? Now, these objects of awareness our awareness are usually the things that we become misidentified with. Please make a note. It is if I am aware of this chair, and in the process of me becoming aware of this chair, I actually start thinking I'm a chair. You see the fallacy? I am aware of the chair, but I am not the chair. Now, I want us to revisit all that material you just wrote down in your self-description. And I want you to see with me the fact that everything you wrote on your list is an object in the field of your awareness. Is that right? Bajira? Bajira agrees. So I must be on the right part, right? Your physical body. You experience your physical body as an object in your awareness. Is that right? Is it right? Don't let me browbeat you. Don't be just agreeing with me. Don't patronize me. Is that right?
Yeah.
You are aware of your body. So your body stands in relationship to awareness as an object, don't it? Your body is an object in your awareness. What about your likes and dislikes? And all that other emotional stuff. right? Your moods. How do you experience those? Do you experience them as objects in the field of your awareness, right? You are aware that I'm sad. You're aware that I'm angry. I'm mad now. You know what I mean? I'm sad. That is an act of awareness, right? You are aware that I am sad. I am sad. I'm aware that I am sad. Sadness, then, is an object in my awareness. Is that right? Are you with me on this?
Yes.
We got to go deep now. We got to go deep into yourself. Right? We're going into ourselves. So you can't run to no book to get what I'm talking about today. Right? So don't think in your mind, well, I guess I get me a book and read up on this stuff and see if I can follow what Bhagwan. No, there ain't no book that you can go by to follow me today. You're going to have to start looking inside just your own interiority, okay? This is the book, right? You got me? Ross set y'all straight on that? All right, good job, says Ross. All right. So your likes and dislikes. And everything else that you are aware of, you are aware of in the relationship of it is the object that you are aware of. It is almost as if you are sitting in this body behind a window, right? And you're looking out of that window at the world. And you are observing the world. There is an observing, witnessing that is going on in you. The mystics have called that the seer. Something in you that sees that which the eyes sees, but itself cannot be seen. Remember, Rick gave us a tremendous insight last time. Rick said that this seer, its nature is that it cannot be seen. It can see everything else, but it itself cannot be seen. Right? You cannot experience the seer as an object in the field of awareness. Are you with me on that?
Yes.
Are you with me on that?
Yes.
You understand? The seer cannot be experienced as an object in the field of your awareness. So if you're looking out here to find your soul, you won't find it. Because the soul is not something that you can experience as an object in the field of your awareness. Is that right, Rick?
Exactly.
Rick, will you please correct me, Rick, if I should deviate at all, okay?
You got it,
Rick said I'm right. He said, you got it, Bhagwan. All right. You can experience your soul, but never as an object in the field of awareness. There is something that is observing, witnessing all that is taking place in the domain of awareness. Tat twam asi, thou art that. And put it in scientific terms, we call this the field of space, time, and causal. And it's a continuum. It's the space-time continuum. Meaning that everything that comes into this field, this domain of awareness, exists in space. So the soul, the seer, by definition, does not exist in any space. Oh, you got to stay with me on this one this morning. It's not in any space. This body occupies space. Is that right?
Right.
Is it right? It's in space. That which sees the body, by definition, is not in space. You understand? Time. This body was born, right? It exists in time. Therefore, it will end, won't it? But this here, was it ever born? No. Now this is deep. This is deep. The soul was never born. It exists outside of time. It's not that your soul survived you after your death. No, it's not like that. Because That would put it in time. The soul is prior to all time. It was never in time in the first place. It is something in you that is there, that witnesses and observes everything that is going on in space-time, but itself stands outside of the space-time causality continuum. Are you with me on this? It is therefore eternal. By eternal we mean outside of time, not a long time, outside of time altogether. It does not exist in time. It does not exist in space at all. Does it move? Because all movement occurs where? In the domain of space and time, right? The soul, the seer, does not exist in the space-time domain. Therefore, it does not move. And the Greek mystics therefore called it the unmoved mover. It itself is unmoved, stationary. It don't move. It's not in time. It simply watches those things that are moving. It is almost as if you remember when we were kids and we would lay in the grass sometimes, and we'll just put our hands around and look up in the sky and look at the clouds. Remember how those clouds would just drift through the sky? They'll come in and then they'll drift on away, and then another cloud will come, and maybe a bird will come across, and then the bird would disappear, and then maybe we'll see a plane come. But we have not moved, right? We have not moved anywhere. They're moving, right? In the same way, the events of the life, the activities of the body parades across this window of awareness. The soul simply is there watching Al, when the baby that was born, that was named Al to those parents, watching from the inside and outside of the body, and watched it grow up. There was a part that experienced it subjectively, and there was a part that has been experienced objectively. Right? It watched you as a little baby, but itself was never a baby. Please make a note of that, was it? Because how could it be? It's not in time. At all. It was grown. You was the baby. But you watched yourself grow up. Please stay with me on this, folks. Haven't you watched yourself grow up? And I'm not talking about simply making reference to your memory bank and the data in there. No. Moment to moment, you were there and you watched yourself grow up. But that thing that was watching, that was seeing it, was never a child at all. Was it? Keeper, you with me on this, Keeper? Stay with me, Keeper. Stay with me, Keeper. It itself does not exist in time and space, but it is watched from that point. Simply watched. It is observed. It has not moved. Now I want you to look at all of the things that you added to your list in your self-description and see how all of those can be located into the domain of awareness and how they are nothing but objects that are parading before your awareness. Now, when your sense of identity matures to the level of your soul, it pulls back from its identification with all of those things on your list. The body, what the body does, the role, the color of the body, the sex of the body, where the body lives, its environment, its culture, its nature, its age. All of those things, the soul begins to understand that's not me. In Hinduism, the expression is nete. Nete. When you ask the question, who am I? And what is the source of my personal awareness? Then your answer to all of those things on your list is nete. Is the source of my personal awareness the body? No. What is the source of your personal awareness? From where is it arising? And this search for that center of awareness is what constitutes the spiritual journey. And as you move deeper and deeper into the location of this source from where your personal awareness arises, when you go back as far as you can go, you hit the soul. When you step literally outside of space and time, you're stepping over into the domain of the soul. You've found where your soul is at. Because the soul is not in space and time. And just so that you can understand, the mind is nothing but this space-time continuum. That's all the mind does. The mind takes experience and breaks it into space and time. That is all the mind does. The mind is nothing but the name for events that are occurring in space and time. That's all the mind is. Hence, when you shut your mind down, notice you have no experience of space and you'll have no experience of time. Please make a note of that. When the mind shuts down, like at night when we go to sleep and we don't have any dreams, we're in that deep dreamless state of sleep that we have called susupti. Notice that in that deep dreamless state of sleep, that you don't even know where you're at. There is nobody. There's no bed. There's no world. There's no nothing. There's none of this stuff. But you exist, don't you? Right? You still exist. There is no sense of space and time at all in the state of susupti. But you need not go to susupti, even in this wakeful level of consciousness. When we are having the experience of intense beauty, time, space drops out. Whenever we're having the experience of love, time, space drops out. Because these are no mind experiences. Isn't that beautiful? These are all experiences outside of your mind. That's why you can never fall in love if you're approaching love rationally. Relationships fail today because we are trying to approach our relationship rationally. That very rational approach is bound to destroy the love. How can you experience love with the mind? You can't, by definition. That's why we call it falling in love. You fall out of the rational. Love is an irrational act. Now, no one can understand why Alma would want Bilal as a husband. Her family couldn't figure out why you want to marry him. It didn't make sense. Right? You see? He's not going to take you anywhere. You see, it don't make sense. You see? Right, it doesn't make sense. It never makes sense. And people always ask us, well, girl, what do you see in him? He ain't no good. The man won't work. You see what I'm saying? The man. And then your daughter said, well, Mama, I love him. And that just really get on your nerve because you try to say, girl, this don't make, but you've forgotten. Your love was also equally irrational. And you don't even know. Sometimes you be so confused. Well, it must be her hair. It must be her eye. No, it ain't that. You're just trying to find something to make sense of this. It ain't her hair because her hair gonna fall out. Right? You see? Or, well, she got a good shape. 20 years it could be gone and you still be in love. It ain't the good shape. You can't put your finger on it because it's not out here in time. It's not out here. It is a timeless, spaceless experience. Love, beauty are timeless, spaceless experiences. And when you have them, you step out of the mind. I'm pointing all of these things out to you because I want you to begin to understand that the soul exists in the same place that love and beauty exist. It's on that plane. You cannot, if you're in this world looking for your soul, you're never going to find it. By definition. And that is the problem for most of us. We have become so immersed and entangled in the world that we have lost our soul. Jesus said, what does a man profit if he should gain the world and lose your soul? The soul can be lost, folks. All of the literature talks about us in terms of lost souls. These are lost souls. There's nothing more pathetic than a lost soul. And you're a lost soul not because you are not a Christian. You are a lost soul not because you're not a Muslim. You are a lost soul because you are asleep. You are locked down in a lower stage of development. There are millions of Christians who think they have saved their soul and remain totally lost. Millions of Muslims who think that they have found their soul and remain lost. Lost soul, found soul, these are not matters pertaining to religion at all. These are spiritual matters. And you know when your soul is lost because your experience of dukkha will be released. If you're feeling dukkha somewhere in your life, you know then that you have not found your soul. You have not become soul-centric. When you become soul-centric, the most characteristic experience of a person who has reached a soul-centric level in the evolution of identity is that the experience of dukkha drops out. Beneath this level, there's dukkha. In varying degrees, depending upon where you're located in the hierarchy. You follow me? But at this level, dukkha, suffering, drops out. Because why? You're no longer identified with any of the components that have been making up your identity at that point. You are simply the observing, witnessing, seeing. Just vast freedom. And this body and all of the life and events associated with it is just passing in your domain of awareness. And you're simply watching. You have pulled back from all of this. You have transcended all of the lower stages of dukkha. You are at peace. You see? Because you're not involved. You're not involved. You know how I feel when you're in love? Have any of y'all been in love? You know, I might be using the wrong analogies here, right? How many's been in love? Raise your hand, because I'm not sure this crowd. All right, okay. You know how you feel when you're in love, or when you're having the experience of tremendous beauty? Perhaps a great piece of music, or a work of art, or a bird on wing, or sunlight drenching and sliding down the limbs of a tree, right? Or walking through a meadow. You know, somewhere, sometime in your life, you must have had these experiences. You know how that feels? That's how it feels that when you become soul-centric. With no interruption. With no interruption. 24/24. Because you are no longer identified with those things that are suffering. The body is suffering. And if you identify with the body, you suffer. Do you understand? All suffering is experienced as a result of your identification with the thing suffering. Are you with me on this? And that was natural because as our egos begin to develop in this hierarchy, right, of identities, the first thing that we came across was the biology, right? The biocentric stage. And we became identified with our biological processes, our hunger, and all that other stuff, right? Because that was the first object in the field of our awareness, wasn't it? It almost seems, you see, folk, that awareness is there. And the first thing that pops up with it, it becomes identified with it. And therefore have all of the experiences that are associated with that vehicle. You follow me? If you grow some and go to the next level, immediately the awareness now incorporates that as the foundation of its identity and have the experiences of suffering that is associated with that vehicle. And so forth and so on. And as it finally reaches this level of the soul, it has transcended its identification with all lower levels. And is now only identified with this vastness. This vastness of freedom. It's a tremendous thing. It's a tremendous thing. That's why terms like the open sky has been used. As free as a bird in the sky. I mean, all of these metaphors that we see in our poetry, in our literature, across all kinds of cultures, point to a description of that kind of expansive experience of reaching the level where your identity is rooted in your awareness of your soul. Right? It generates a tremendous sense of freedom. For the first time in your life, you feel free. Real freedom. Just vast freedom. Vast freedom. Because all these things are just floating. You're no longer clinging. You're not clinging at all. It's almost like a child when we're children and how we want to sometimes try to capture these clouds. Now, this is foolish. How would you capture a cloud? You don't want this to pass. The cloud has to pass. This body will go. It exists in time. It's okay, right? The soul is not affected. And when your identity reaches a level where it is centered in this soul, for the first time, you experience freedom. Vast freedom. And what is this freedom from? Freedom from death. That's your greatest fear. You're afraid to die. And this fear that you have of dying drives all of your behavior. It is the basis of all your urgency. It is the basis of all your greed. You're trying to get everything in now. You see, I'm trying to drink me as much booze as I can, have me as much sex as I can get, make me as much money as I can get. I'm trying to live it up. Truly, you have become a hedonist, right? Because you know death is coming, right? And there's going to be a time I can't drink, eat, have sex, make money. Man, I got to get busy, right? And you're doing all of that because you have lost your soul. You have lost awareness of the fact that I'm never going to die. I'm not even in the stream of time. I exist outside of the stream of time. I was never born. I will never die. I am not the body. I don't need the things that the body says it needs. I'm not going to panic. Yeah, let the body go through its thing. Remember last time I said that you begin to experience the body as an object in awareness. This is an object in awareness. Now I'm giving you these things because you have to sit and ponder this one. You have to put your elbow on your knee and get you a cup of tea and get your tail in a corner somewhere and sit down, and you're gonna have to think about this. You're gonna have to absorb this. You see? You're gonna have to chew it up. Yes, sister.
Bhagwan.
Yes, sister.
Is the soul, is that what you were talking about once before when you were speaking? You said that it was who we were before we entered our mother's womb. Who we were
Yes,
when we were in our mother's womb.
yes.
Is that the soul?
That was a metaphor.
Yeah.
What they call the original face. The original identity. You see. These are just metaphors pointing to the same thing. They're saying that which you are, you were before you entered your mother's womb. That which you are, you will be even after this body drops away. That which you are is not subject to decay. It is not subject to change. Because this body is changing, isn't it? Constantly. Why? Because it is in the domain, isn't it, of awareness. Right? And anything that is in your domain, anything that you are aware of, by definition, exists in time and space and therefore will perish. By definition. We're talking quantum mysticism. Okay? By definition, anything that you are aware of, any event, person, place, or thing, exists in time and space and will perish. This was the great insight of the Buddha. Have the insight called the insight of impermanence. Try to understand the impermanence of these things. The wife, the children, the husband, the job, the body, all of this will pass. Believe it. In fact, you don't even have to believe it. Simply observe it. It is the case. The little ego that you are, that you're trying to cling to, that is gone. You're not going to heaven. The you that you are identified with is made up of nothing but your misidentification with the things in the field of awareness. That you is going nowhere. It is not going to heaven. It is not going to survive after your death. You see, at all. It is pseudo. It is false. This is the false self. And that is the self that we are all identified with. We have become identified with the false self. Right? And in that process, we have lost our identification with the true self, which is the soul, and therefore suffer. Now we're going to have a few questions, and we want to pick up because we're just getting started, folks. All of this stuff here, hurry up, huh?
Break first.
Break. He's running out of tape. Bilal don't want to miss anything. So we'll take our break now and allow Bilal to load up again, and then we'll return where we left off. And we'll return at, say, 2:30. All right. Okay, so we will continue our discussion here, talking about the transpersonal levels, where our sense of identity is no longer rooted in any of the components that were prior in our evolution. We're talking about when we reach that level of the unfoldment of spirit that is defined as the level of the soul. And remember that the spirit is immanent in all of the lower stages. I don't want you to forget that. Last time we pointed out that even in matter there is spirit. But spirit has not been able to unfold much of itself because of the limitations and restrictions that matter imposes upon that unfoldment. That there is spirit present even in this table. But because the table, the body, the vehicle, the matter, does not lend itself to great expression of the spirit that is inherent in it, therefore we consider it to be a lower form of life. You see. In fact, that whole hierarchy of levels of life is based upon how much spirit can be expressed in that form of life. This is how we get our hierarchy. And the sages and mystics have told us that there are approximately 8,400,000 different forms in which spirit is inherent, and that these forms differ in the sense that each form will be able to express a different degree of the spirit that is inherent in it. And that it is this human form that we come into that allows us, you see, to unfold spirit to a very, very high degree. And through that whole process of the unfoldment of spirit in the human form has been the subject of our talks on the evolution of ego, the sense of identity of who we are is so critical, because wherever our sense of identity is located on this scale will dictate so much of the quality of our life. This business about the evolution and maturation and the expansion, if you will, of ego constitute the sum total of all spiritual practices. It is the whole objective. It is the objective of Islam, of Christianity, of Judaism, of Hinduism, of any ism in its purest form has had this as its objective. Is to bring us to a state of what is called self-realization. Now, it is interesting that these mystics will say that you have to work towards self-realization, because we've been thinking, well, we are self-realized. That is the whole problem, because we feel that myself is this body in its history, in its parentage, and all of the exploits that it's gone through. Myself is the collection of my likes, my dislikes, my moods, you see. That is myself. So we said, what is this nonsense you talking about, mystic? Find yourself. I already know who I am. And this becomes the hardest test. As Al pointed out to us in a prior occasion, that the spiritual growth requires a constant dying, doesn't it? In order to be able to attain the next level of your identity, you must forsake this level of identity that you are at. You must die to this level of identification. And that is always painful because we have become very attached, we cling to it. It's really like a death. It is truly like a death. But if we have the courage to die, then we will have the experience of being born again. You can't be